Well, it's time to do Monday business right here on Business Incorporated. For today, we have this lineup for you. First of all, in Nigeria, the coordinating minister, Mr. Waledu, is insisting that the value-added tax is still at 7.5%. Also, we're looking at ways to improve non-oil exports through agriculture. That will be also in Nigeria. And then we fly over to Egypt, where remittances hit $3 billion, an increase for that country. You're welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We'll do 55 minutes of business right here. We start from the global space. Oil prices, I beg your pardon, gold prices is where we're starting from this afternoon. And we can tell you the prices were flat on Monday as investors await that U.S. inflation print that's due later on this week to strengthen their bets on the size of a likely reduction in Federal Reserve's interest rate. That's the number right there on your screen. Right here, I'll tell you that spot gold is still retaining the 2,400 level that it closed with on Fridays at $2,497.25. That's unchanged. And U.S. gold futures went up just a bit, $2,526.10. If we look at the other metals for this time, spot silver is gained up a bit, 0.3%, $27.99. Platinum is also up a whole 1%. That's a lot of movement there. $930.75. Palladium is also up 0.7%, $916.90. Meanwhile, China's central bank held back on buying gold for its reserve for a fourth straight month. And key metals consumer, China's consumer prices, we see accelerated in August, while producer price deflation worsened as Beijing maintains efforts to reinvigorate domestic demand. Now, one of those top stories we told you about, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Waledu, had debunked reports doing the rounds that the rate of value-added tax in Nigeria has been upwardly adjusted to 10% from 7.5%. The minister, who shared this in a statement he signed, affirms that the current rate is 7.5%, and this is what the government is charging on all spectrum of goods and services to which the tax is applicable. Therefore, neither the federal nor any of its agencies will act contrary to what the laws stipulate. He says that the tax system stands on a tripod, namely tax policy, tax laws, and tax administration. All the three, he says, must combine well to give a sound system that gives vitality to the fiscal position of the government. And then we look at, there you have the numbers right there of VAT according to the National Bureau of Statistics. This has happened in the second quarter of the year of 2024 in Nigeria. We see the number of value-added tax, that's VAT, that the minister was talking about. We see it went up by 9.11%, standing at 1.56 trillion naira. Local VAT payments also went up. Foreign VAT payment also was up at 395.74 billion naira. Import tax 372.95. Manufacturing also went up right there. This is for the second quarter of the year 2024. For ICT, it's 9.09%. Mining and quarrying are looking good. Like human health and social work, Q on Q went up almost 100%. That, of course, is of interest to a lot of us. Agri-forestry and fishery also went up. I guess some of this will be, the effect will be the base year effect when you see such a huge movement. Water supply, waste management and remediation went up just about 59.7 quarter on quarter. CIT went up more than 150%. Local CIT received stood at 1.35 trillion naira, while foreign CIT payment was at 1.12 trillion naira. This is talking about the company income tax and no longer the VAT right there. So we see a lot of numbers being released by the National Bureau of Statistics. And one of the things that can be noticed from this is an increase in the collection, at least the recorded collection of taxes. So perhaps those reforms, maybe the ones, not yet the ones from the Oyedele committee, perhaps some of those reforms that the FIRS has been putting there, we'll see it coming out right there in the value of tax received in the country. Now, the China visit may have come to an end, and now we are counting some of those gains and expectations. I know there are meetings going on even right here in Nigeria with the Chinese community, also meeting with some financial sector, members of the financial sectors. But first, the Kaduna State Governor, Mr. Obasani, who was there with the president in China, tells us some of the gains that Kaduna State should see after that visit.
Take the opportunity of signing an MOU between Kaduna State government and Huawei Technologies Limited with Kaduna State government on smart city project. Of course, for us, it's a very important MOU that will enhance security in Kaduna State, also improve the level of transparency and efficiency in public service. The MOU also will focus in other areas that have to do with the creation or establishment of a state-level command center in Kaduna. We will also partner with them to ensure that we establish a smart healthcare service, smart education, also deploy technology in the area of public transportation, and as well as talent creation.
Now let's go to the oil space. Futures jumped by $1 in early trading on Monday as a potential hurricane system approached the U.S. Gulf Coast and as markets recovered from a sell-off following weaker than expected U.S. jobs data that was released on Friday. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose $1, and that's about 1.48% to $68.67 a barrel, while Brent crude futures were up 99 cents. That's about 1.39% to $72.05 a barrel. Analysts said that the bounce was in part a reaction to potential hurricane in the U.S. Gulf Coast. The weather system in the southwest Gulf of Mexico is forecast to become a hurricane before it reaches the northwestern U.S. Gulf Coast. And the U.S. National Hurricane Center had released this information, and that area accounts for about 60% of U.S. refining capacity. A highly anticipated U.S. government jobs report showed non-farm payrolls increased less than market watchers had expected in August, rising by 142,000, and the July figure was downwardly revised to an increase of 89,000, which was the smallest gain since an outright decline in December 2020. Still in the oil space, while here in Nigeria, the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprises, Dr. Muda Yusuf, is asking about why, about a week later, after the commencement of Dangote Petrol, the NNPC is yet to begin off-taking premium motor spirit from that refinery. Dr. Yusuf says that it becomes even more worrying if reports that import of PMS is still being done.
What I do know from the announcement from Dangote is that they were ready, they have the products ready, and suddenly we saw that supply has improved. Where did the supply come from? Apparently, they have also gone to import again. Why should that be? I think something is not adding up. Something is not adding up, and I think we need to fix this in the interest of the economy and in the interest of the Nigerian people. Even if you want to reduce subsidy, it is easier to reduce subsidy when you are producing locally. You can monitor the transactions. The integrity of the process can easily be monitored. And now that the government has offered to sell the crude in Naira, the landing costs should be much lower. So there's a whole lot of advantage for us to latch on to stabilize this economy. So I think maybe higher authorities need to weigh in on this. That should be my take. Because the way it is, I'm not sure we can leave this very big issue only to the NNPC. I don't think so. The political leaders need to weigh in on this so that we can straighten things out.
That's the question on the lips of some Nigerians. Now, let's hear what Dr. Ayodele Oni, partner at Bloomfield Law, has to say about this. Dr. Oni, good afternoon. So the question now is, why does it seem like the NNPCL is being reluctant to offtake petrol from Dangote? Any news, any background story?
I'm not sure what's happening. It sounds a bit strange to me, unless, of course, they weren't prepared before now. Other than that, and that shouldn't be the case. Other than that, it's difficult to explain what the situation may be. But it's also possible to put forward certain excuses or explanation. Maybe they haven't reached a compromise on pricing, maybe some other logistics challenges. But if this has been in the works for a while and conversations have been going on, then we shouldn't be where we are at the moment, and it'll be difficult to find any explanation. But because I do not have all the facts, I cannot say for certain what the reason for this is.
And the scary thing is now, the news not yet confirmed that Dangote is saying, well, they may have to export their petrol. And as Dr. Muda suggested there, perhaps the NNPC is still importing. So, I mean, when you look at the whole picture, it's difficult to understand why we do have a product that is needed in much demand in the country, and yet it's being imported while the domestic refiner is exporting. One just wonders are there sentiments going on? Because Dangote had already shared a statement to say they are waiting for the NNPC. They had also said, well, as surprising, the Federal Executive Council was supposed to be having meetings to agree on a price, because we do know that the subsidy element is there. So the whole picture, and I think this is why a lot of Nigerians say, just give us information. We want the truth so we understand the real picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been a challenge is in this part of the world is honesty and forthrightness. I think if we know what the true state of things is, then it gives more comfort, and we're able to estimate or determine what the challenges are and when those challenges will be over. I'm first a lawyer, so I'll start from what the law says, what the PIA says. The PIA requires that there's domestic supply of crude to refiners, those who have licenses, whose licenses are still valid and whose refineries are operational. So I expect that crude will be sold and then finished products will be available. The only challenge there then is the idea of buying in Naira and then having to sell back in Naira. What are the terms? There's some opaqueness around that. What are the terms? Could they have sold the crude in Naira and given him the option to then export? I struggle to see how that might work, particularly within the framework of this DCSO, the Domestic Crude Supply Obligation. If there's a domestic crude supply obligation, that means you are reserving particular quantity for refining in Nigeria that will be used in Nigeria. Otherwise, if it's to be exported, I mean the petroleum products derived from the crude is to be exported in the first place, then you don't need a DCSO arrangement. You may as well source your crude from elsewhere and then export the finished products derived from that crude. So I think there may be a challenge around the contractual framework or the arrangement such that Dangote may actually be tied down to selling that particular crude gotten in Naira from the NNPCL in Nigeria. It may be an obligation to sell in Nigeria, and then logistics and those issues need to be dealt with. That's on one hand. On the other hand, you also have to consider the independent marketers. Isn't there an option? And you ask, this is a question, right? You'd ask whether there isn't an option for those other marketers to go buy that petroleum product, the PMS in particular, without necessarily waiting for the NNPC. Because the spirit of the PIA is to ensure that you have many buyers, many sellers. You ultimately end import of petroleum products. You do backward integration. The Act specifically mentions that. And you would only have a situation where NNPC is even stepping in as supplier of last resort, where you've got insufficient quantities of PMS in the market. So I think that we need someone to come out and be honest and tell us what the true situation of things are and what may be the inhibition as things stand. Is it logistics? When is all of this going to be over? Is it in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, you would have the PMS at the pumps? So first, honesty, and secondly, we need to understand what the contractual arrangement is between the NNPCL and Dangote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just it. Nigerians need to know exactly what's going on, even if the government wants the people's sympathy and understanding. Obviously, information has to be out there. And talking about the issue of crude, I don't know, I know the announcement has been made and they were discussing the modalities of selling that crude in Naira, but I wonder if that has started because we do know that even before now, Dangote has had to be importing crude from the country. Other local refiners, so it's not just about Dangote, we have the modular refineries too. They are also struggling with domestic crude because the IOCs have their own contracts that have been signed and all of that. So I guess the other factor in all of this would be the availability of crude and the terms of that availability of crude.
Yes, that's a good question. The law is clear that there's a DCSO, a domestic crude supply obligation. However, what the law says, it's on a willing buyer, willing seller arrangement. Secondly, there's no obligation to sell in Naira. It's based on what the parties decide or negotiate. Yes, the upstream commission can then step in, but in stepping in, they need to be cautious. So the law makes those provisions and then allows them, if someone is being unreasonable, they can't step in. But there are standards on even what that pricing will be. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, there have been a lot of reserves-based lending, forward sale arrangements that predate the PIA. So to the extent that these predate the PIA, I'm sure the upstream commission is being cautious in determining, and it's issued guidelines around domestic crude supply obligations because there must be a process, right? The law just provides a general framework and there's the specifics on how it should be done. So everyone is struggling because IOCs like the NNPCL, which is a national oil company, have sold even crude not yet produced. Some have done RBL, some have done forward sales, so that they have limited quantities to make available. But I believe that out of the limited quantities, there'll be some that should still be available for the domestic market. And a number of these refiners also have oil blocks. I know Aradel does have, and a number of them do have blocks and may need to integrate in this sense. Another thing I think may be a challenge is around pricing, and a number of the IOCs having arrangements with traders, and they having to tell you to go buy from those traders. I think once you have new laws such as this and new arrangements, you need a period for people to adjust. Now, this is 2024. From 2021, I expect that adjustment should have taken place now, or we should be close to a situation where we can have sufficient volumes of crude. But another challenge you may not have considered is the fact that the number of divestment transactions that the government is there to grant consent to. Because once people want to sell their assets, they are not going to continue to invest or risk capital in said assets. You've got the Seplat, Exxon Mobil, you've got the ones for Renaissance and Shell. So once government can grant consent to these transactions, the new owners are going to invest in production, and you'd also have more crude available. If you don't have the crude available, then you don't have it available regardless of the law. Recall, the law cannot command the impossible.
Yeah, well, Dr. Oni, a lot of issues there to consider and questions left unanswered, but thank you so much, Dr. Ayodele Oni, partner at Bloomfield Law. Let's talk about the non-oil now. We're looking at improving non-oil exports. Now we have an individual with us who is now in the public sector, but I'm going to draw from his experience when in the private sector, Otumba Tola Fasheru. He's the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security in Osun State. But Otumba Fasheru, I'm going to also talk to you because I know you're a former president of National Cashew Association, and I spoke to you there and went to your factory and all of that. So you do have a first-hand experience. So I think, first of all, before we delve into that, we're talking about Petrol now. I know you're in government. Maybe, I don't know whether you have your own special, but how is the situation really in Osun State? And you've been in Lagos. I think you're in Lagos all through the weekend and all that.
Yes. It's not good for the economy. Definitely not good for the economy. And for me, it shows, it portrays insensitivity of the federal government. Because we know the impact of fuel on everything within the economy. I mean, whether it's food, whether it's export, whether it's anything at all. Businesses, creating employment, quality of living of the people, standard of living of the people. So we thought, at that level, yes, we had to deregulate, we had to remove the subsidy and all of that, which I think, well, it's good, I mean, economically. But what is happening? Everybody's kept in the dark. And I don't know what's going on. The oil sector has always been like that, and then each successive government, they tend to not to be transparent. And then they leave the people, you say, okay, we are at the end of the road, yes, now subsidy removed. Then you hear again, it wasn't removed. I mean, that's not good. And then you see, even talking about the fuel price, in the various states, you see, everybody's pushing, everybody's trying. I mean, you look at the issue of food security. But we're doing our best. But if we are not getting enough support from the federal government, we will not be able to do a lot, because this has to do with policies from their end. Fuel policy, if it's not in tandem with what we're doing to reduce the cost and make food affordable to the populace, then we are nowhere. If we're talking about making food cheap for everybody, and then foreign exchange, the rate of FX keeps skyrocketing, then where are we? I mean, yes, you say food is local content, but there are things that are put into it to create, to bring the food, fertilizer. Some of the inputs are foreign sourced. And then a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are in the.
Well, what would you think that the federal government could do in this situation to help, like first few steps or so?
Okay, for instance, we are not seeing the right body language. We're talking about the effects. The cost of foreign exchange definitely will affect everything within the economy. Within the last 3 years, we've seen cost of items gone up 4 times. How do people survive? And we should not push people to the limit. So, for instance, the non-oil sector, what are they doing? They've been in, the federal government has been there for the last one year, nothing to cushion the effect for exporters. If the exporters were not there up until, if they were not there, the economy would have gone into shambles. What are they doing to encourage them? Today, the entry for the exporters today is no go. So you don't even have anybody, the new ones coming in. It's a blocked area. So the guys who are there, who have been there many years, went through all the troubles, I mean, for instance, my own company has been there for 25 years. We know the trajectory. We know what we went through. Nobody was even looking at export. Banks were not even looking at export. But we said, that is the way. Today we're here. Well, we're on $5 billion, but how far can they go? Can that go for the economy? That needs, we need to remove the pressure. But They're not doing anything.
I was even hoping that at least as a representative of the state government and somebody who is experienced in the private sector, perhaps an individual like yourself would be pushing for PPP, public-private partnership. I mean, you are still playing in the private sector and all of that. Perhaps that could be because the federal government themselves will tell you they're overburdened at this time. They have a lot of expenses. Debt servicing is really high, and they're still paying subsidy and all of that. Perhaps PPP is a way forward going through the state government.
Yes, absolutely. At this point, all collaboration is necessary. State government, private sector, think tank. At times you wonder where they're getting the ideas from. And most times they don't even talk to the people that know. Unfortunately, I must say. I mean, if I look at the NOLA sector that we're talking about, who are they talking to? Who is giving them ideas? So. Every collaboration. It's not everything we have to go out there and be borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. The future of Nigeria is looking bleak. And what about our children coming? If we think the easiest way is to go and get loan, rather than think outside of the box. In my state, for instance, my governor is not taking any loan. Are we saying the resources are enough? No. But what is he doing? He's not taking his security votes. He's taking to everybody, let's maximize what we have. Bringing in people that have ideas to work with him in the team. And then, you see what is happening in our state. It's a model. It's a model. I mean, Governor Adeleke is giving leadership, is giving governance a new definition. Where you see, people can feel him. People can know what he's doing. There's communication every moment. People can, like I said the other time, people said they were going to declare 10 days protest. Before the end of the 10 days, they stopped it because they could see what he's doing. They could see infrastructures everywhere, even in the midst of mega resources. The previous government never did anything. They borrowed money, and the money coming into the state is lean. But even with that, things are going.
Could you share some of those ideas? Perhaps other states' representatives are listening or watching, and they may borrow a leaf or two.
One of the things is small government expenses. That is very clear.
That's cost of governance.
Cost of governance is reduced. He himself is telling everybody, let's work and be modest. Let's be, the people have suffered enough before we came in. So it's just being people-minded alone, just being God-fearing alone, not just being selfless. It comes from the heart. It comes from the heart. And that's what is happening. And so everybody knows that, yes, we're here to work. We're not here because of the perks of governance or of government. We're there to work and deliver for the people. And that's what is happening. And then you see, even in Osun, you see the local content. We are not bringing people from like the other government who bring people from Lagos, people that they cut the money of Osun, they take it to everywhere, take it abroad and all of that. Here, it's a local economy, local content. People within the state, they are feeling it. If you get to Osun now, every carpenter is busy. Every of these masons, they are busy working. So even though the economy at large is tough, but you can still see smiles on the faces of the people because you see how things are running there. So we got on the ground, no single tractor. The last time tractors were bought was during the last PDP government. Okay, and the ones when the two past administrations came in, either they sold it, or they ran it down. We had to go get new ones. And you could see, if you see how those tractors are coming in, you see the smiles on the faces of the people. We're getting into the nitty-gritty, the local people getting into our farm settlements, reaching every local government, providing the inputs that will add value for them, that will increase productivity, that will help their livelihoods. And these are things that we said in a few months' time, we will come and see what you have produced. So it's not like giving things for people it's measurable. Something we're going to go back, we will do go back to their farms and see what the outcome is. So that is real governance, not lip service.
All right, Otumba Fasheru. Well, I think at this rate, we're all going to relocate to Osun State.
I think we should.
Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security in Osun State, also former president of National Cashew Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time and wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Ine. Thanks for having me.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll head to the markets and other segments of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back to Watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. We'll head to the markets now with Anite Edet. Anite comes in with a red market this afternoon.
Yes,
from a red week.
Exactly. Second week of September. And let me also bust your bubble with this red number. The last time I checked, which is just a couple of minutes ago, this figure is barely standing at 96,000. What I saw was 96,059 points.
So most likely we may lose 96 at the close of trade, except a miracle happens anyway.
A miracle. And don't forget that last week we saw about 3 trading sessions, but all at the same time.
3 negative trading sessions?
Yeah, more than 83.5 billion loss and 0.15% down for the market. But so far the market is still in positive territory at about a plus 29%.
That's for the year.
That's for the year. So it's still fair value for the domestic
for the market, not the naira, please.
No, not for the naira. No, we'll talk about the naira, particularly for the expectation for the week. Okay, now look at the intraday numbers for markets across the African continent, where we always start from the home front, Nigeria. The all-share index of the benchmark index of stocks listed, more than 170 stocks listed on the exchange, down 0.31%, and then that's the last track, which is about an hour ago. So these numbers, they still change until the final number comes out at 2:30. And for the other side of the market, JSC all-share index 0.55% in the green, and barely standing at 81,815.81. And for the other markets on the continent, Egypt, as well as NSE, you see two sides of the colors here, one closing on the positive side, while the other, as at Friday, was at in the red, 0.14%. So far, Nigeria's stock market has been able to, in the midst of all of this downturn, it still has been able to hold up against its peers on the continent so far. But let's see how that performance, because we're actually in the last month of the third quarter, which barely 3 weeks from now, we'll be crossing into another quarter, which will be the final quarter, whether Nigeria's stock market will be able to maintain its status as one of the best performing stock markets on the African continent. Well, we'll get to see how that turns out. Now, let's talk more about the Nigerian stock market, where we saw, that's the first week of September, where we saw the market being in the red, 0.15%. But at the same time, we also saw that a total of 2.14 billion shares valued at 51.22 billion were traded in the first week. And then, of course, at the same time, that number was slightly lower by about 2.82 billion naira. But at the same time, we also saw domestic participation of investors there outpacing the number of foreign portfolio investors there. And to give us a glimpse and much more analysis on that, why that has happened, let's bring in Abiodun Adedotun, equity trader with FBN Quest, to give us that details, as well as intraday market numbers and other factors to consider on the market. Thank you for joining us, Abiodun.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Victor.
Okay.
It's good to be here again.
Okay, nice one. Okay. So can you tell us? Last week we saw 3 positive trading sessions, but at the same time, the market still ended in the red. Now, why is all of this happening? I know that it's the start of September.
Of course, I think quite a number of market participants attribute it to, a lot of activities that happened in September. On the retail side, it's school fees period, you get some form of part liquidation or part termination, you understand, to be able to fund parts of consumption activities that is ongoing right now. But more importantly, investors have actually been on the sideline looking at what's happening in the markets and especially the banking sector, which apparently has attracted the biggest buzz in the face of this ongoing recapitalization exercise. So the first flyers among the banks that rolled out their offers, Zenith Bank is closing today. Of course, GTB, Access, FCMB had closed their offer. Fidelity had closed their offer earlier. So investors are on the sideline looking at what is going to be the direction of these lenders going forward and the impact of the dilution or the dilutive effects, you understand, of this recapitalization exercise on profitability going forward.
Okay, Abiodun, I think because of time, we may just have to leave it there and, of course, take our focus on how the market will close. So thank you so much for your time on the show. So that was Abiodun Adedotun, an equity trader with FBN Quest. Now let's take a look at what to expect before we go to other sides of the markets that's on the Middle East. But let's take a look at all right, so before we go to what to expect on Nigeria's financial markets, this is how the markets across the Middle East are trading. The sentiments across board, it's a sell-off across the markets on the United Arab Emirates. The Dubai down 0.29%, while the Abu Dhabi index is down 0.92%, almost down by 1%. Now, let's see on the other side of the market. The Tadawul on Saudi Arabia is down 0.13%, and the Qatari Stock Exchange down 0.02%. Now, we're talking about financial markets expectations for the week. This is what to expect on Nigeria's stock market. We'll be talking about the dollar making its pressure on the Nigerian financial markets against the naira. The dollar has been bashing the naira left, right, and center. The naira is currently at about 1,006 in one part of the official market, and almost that amount on the other side of the official market, which is the NAFEX. We have both the NAFEX and the NAFEM. For the money markets, like I mentioned about the naira is expected to depreciate further in the near term. For the stock market, we're also expecting mixed trading, mixed sentiments, whether in the bullish side or on the bearish side. For the treasury bills market, we're expecting that at the primary market auction, which will be carried out on Wednesday, that's about more than 161.88 billion naira worth of maturities will be rolled over by the Debt Management Office. And then, of course, the NBS is set to release, first of all, today, the foreign trade statistics, as well as the total domestic debts report, which Nigeria's debt is currently put at more than 121.67 trillion naira for as at the first quarter of this year. So, Ini, that's it for the market.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anitian, for that outlook for the week.
Pleasure.
Right now, let's move to Berlin, where Chiponda is standing by to tell us about the chip war. Not new, between China and the West is intensifying at this time. On Sunday, Beijing had said that it was dissatisfied with the Dutch government's decision to match U.S. export curbs on machines used to make semiconductors. Chip, what's the latest on this chip war?
Thanks for having me. Well, Ini, over the weekend, Beijing issued a response to the Dutch government's decision to restrict exports of semiconductor-making machines produced by sector heavyweight ASML. Since Saturday, ASML has been able to apply for export licenses directly with the Dutch authorities instead of the U.S. government to export the equipment outside the European Union. Now, the Dutch government's move means that the EU country is aligning itself with US curbs on technology, which are currently at the center of trade tensions between the world's two biggest economies. And as can be expected, Beijing has been critical. It says the Netherlands should not abuse export controls and avoid measures that damage relations between the two countries. The Dutch Trade Minister Renate Kleva says the decision was made for security reasons, and she did not mention China specifically in a statement on her government's decision.
But what's the significance of this decision?
This is a big deal because chips are indispensable in electronics today, and they can be found in just about anything with a display and even household appliances like fridges. But there's a lot of concern over national security and so-called dual-use chips, which can be used in military equipment. And that's why the Dutch government had already restricted the export of more advanced chip-making machines. And now they are adding 2 other older chip-making machines because technology is progressing so fast that even those devices can be used to make advanced chips. Now, the US has been pressuring the Netherlands and other allies for stricter export controls on chip-making machines. The aim is to slow down China's ability to make advanced semiconductors over security concerns. But ASML's CEO reportedly considers US export blockades to be economically motivated, and he expects increasing pressure from the US and growing resistance to it. It's not just the sale of machines that is impacted by the Dutch government's decision, but also parts and maintenance of equipment that is already in China is affected. It will be interesting to see whether there's a retaliatory move by Beijing.
I'm sure we'll be waiting for that. Let's look at the markets. What are investors doing?
European markets are expected to be little changed today, ahead of a European Central Bank interest rate decision on Thursday. Investors have already priced in a 0.25% cut, but they are less sure whether the euro area's central bank will be cutting rates in October and December. So they will also be looking out for signals of any further rate cuts on Thursday. The Eurozone inflation is now close to 2%, and if inflation falls below the 2% target, the European Central Bank may cut rates further. And in terms of economic data, investors will be looking out for the latest U.S. consumer credit data later in the day. In corporate news, Google owner Alphabet faces another antitrust case in the U.S. It could potentially lead to a breakup of the tech giant. And Apple is set to present its iPhone 16 and other devices later today.
What to that, Chip? Thank you so much for that. All right, let's head to Africa now. In Egypt, remittances from the experts there reached a new high in July 2024, increasing by 86.8% year on year to approximately $3 billion. This according to central bank data. This marks the 5th consecutive month of growth in the largest monthly increase on record. In July 2023, remittances stood at $1.6 billion. On a monthly basis, remittances rose 15.9% in July compared to the previous month. Year-to-date, remittances from Egyptians overseas surged by 32.4%, reaching $15.5 billion in the first 7 months of this year, compared with $11.7 billion in the same period of 2023. The continued increase in remittances is a positive indicator for Egypt's economy. And in South Africa, after 3 consecutive years of financial losses, Airports Company South Africa has made a significant turnaround, reporting a post-tax profit of 472 million rand for 2023-2024 financial year. The company, which is 74.6% owned by the government, operates 9 airports across the country, including the major international hubs, Otabo, Cape Town, and Durban International Airports.
This particular outcome, and part of that has been driven by our recovery and sustain strategy. We had fiscal discipline, which enabled us to cut costs and save on operating costs and CAPEX up until this particular stage. And we also had an aggressive turnaround strategy that really needed to get us to increase aeronautical revenue, non-aeronautical revenue, to the extent that we've achieved the profit. Let me just indicate the key drivers of this success that we see today are really in the aeronautical revenue space, where we've gained 600 million through additional airlines that have committed, international airlines and domestic traffic, which has increased to the recovery point of 88% of our pre-2019 performance levels. In addition to that, our non-aeronautical revenue has also increased by 400 million, and that basically augurs well.
All right, let's do crypto now, and we see the numbers right there. Bitcoin is 55,342.64. It's going up. I mean, yesterday I checked about this time, it was about 54. thousand. So perhaps it was a good entry point for some investors. Ethereum is also recovered just a little bit, 2,326.70. BNB, we see a bit of recovery here, but I mean, we've seen better days than this. Cardano is also up, XRP. But our interest this afternoon would be what's going on in the regulatory community or area. Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission, they say they are going to crack down on unregulated crypto exchanges. And Mr. Agama has been so busy since he came in. He's been in the news and very interested in crypto, but we see that he's not going to leave any stone unturned. So he announced that Nigeria will be taking action against entities attempting to offer cryptocurrency services without a proper regulation. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, is off to Japan, where we may be seeing green mining of Bitcoin. I wonder what that will look like and what they will use. Is it solar? Is it wind? But let's talk to Rume now. Rume Ofi joins us to tell us what he thinks about this. Hi, Rume. Good afternoon. So, Mr. Agama or Dr. Agama is really busy, is very serious and interested in the crypto community, but he's also saying he's not going to allow any illegality to go through. But I wonder what the crypto community is seeing as the regulation or the clamp down on unregulated, those without proper regulation. What does that look like following these statements by the SEC boss?
I think the SEC boss, Dr. Momotimi Agama, is doing a very fantastic job. I think I give it up to this administration for appointing such a very smart personality. The industry actually lacks some form of leadership, when I mean leadership in terms of regulation, and he came at the right time. In the past, we've seen exchange platform coming to Nigeria, take a lot of people's money and they go bankrupt. A couple of them like AX, FTX, they didn't have the regulation. They actually got into the country illegally, and a lot of Nigerians lost their money. In fact, because of all of that, people have actually attributed this industry to be an industry where you have scammers and people losing their money frequently. But he's saying now that the industry right now has actually regulated only 2 exchange platforms, Busha and Quidax. So anyone that is willing to operate should apply for the license if they get it. But those that are operating currently, they are going to obviously be sanctioned. And it's a welcome development. And I think those of us in the community are appreciating that, because there's a lot of things going on, and we've had enough in this industry where people just come in, do what they like, make people lose money and go away. I think it's a welcome development, and I really, really applaud it.
All right, so Rume, what does this mean? We know that, these 2, Busha and Quidax, they just got licensed, that just went through all of that. But a lot of people have been trading in the crypto community long before this. So what does this mean? Does it mean those the traders should move to these 2, or what does it really mean in practical terms? Hello, Rume, can you hear me?
All right. If I get you correctly, a couple of persons have been trading before, even before. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
A couple of persons have been trading before now, before the regulation, and a couple of things have been recorded, like terrorism financing, some illicit stuff going on in terms of funding of maybe money laundering, and as well as that. So the regulation now is going to fine-tune how money is being moved, who is actually moving money at what point, for if the money is an illegal proceed from something that is very bad to the economy, so that is what the regulation brings in. Before now, people just do stuff and get away with it, but now that the regulations are coming, some of these exchange platforms are going to be held responsible for all of this movement if they are not doing the right thing, because I'm very sure that those are part of the requirement for applying for the license in the first place. So they are going to account for if some persons are doing money laundering, if they are financing terrorism, all of those things in place. So now there's going to be some level of consciousness. The level of consciousness is that if you do certain things that are contrary to what the SEC guidelines are, the exchange platforms are going to be held accountable, and most likely they're going to produce the customer that are involved in all of that.
Yeah, and then this green mining for Bitcoin in Tokyo Electric Power Company, and they are looking to explore solar. They say it's wasted renewable energy. What impact can we expect, if they eventually start this?
Yeah, so it's going to give them an opportunity to mine Bitcoin, because the process of mining Bitcoin is the process of creating new Bitcoin into circulations, right? It consumes a lot of energy, and they are going to use green energy, solar, and others to be able to use that. That is excess energy that they have to do that, rather than just waste it. So I'm going to relate that to our times here in Nigeria, where I'm from the Niger Delta area where they flare gas. I've seen that real time. So we should start thinking of rather wasting all of this energy to begin to mine Bitcoin, because countries are holding Bitcoin in their balance sheet. Now that we've had regulations in place, maybe Nigeria could think of holding some amount of Bitcoin in their balance sheet, because before all of this started, we know the price of Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin has actually appreciated. So gradual process, maybe a country could do dollar cost averaging gradually and improving our treasury, also improve our currency as well. So we should think of things in that direction. But I give it up to Japan for doing that, and they are going to most likely reap the benefit, like El Salvador already doing something in that nature.
All right, wait for them to start, though they haven't started. They're just exploring. But thank you so much. I understand where you're coming from, Rume Ofi, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Ini. Always a pleasure.
All right, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. It's going to be a different week today. I'll let you know tomorrow how it's going to be, but let's do it tomorrow, yeah? But I'll see you at 10 p.m. for the stock market report, and then 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'm John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.